this video, I'd like to walk through the scanning process using the Shining 3D Metismile Facial Scanner. There are two strategies that we're going to walk through today, or at least introduce. And one strategy is where the scanner sits on a tripod, and the other is the handheld mode. And then we'll walk through the full scanning process then using one of those modes. So let's talk about the two different modes initially. So we've got Tom sitting in the chair as our patient today, and we've got the scanner set as a tripod. So strategy number one is we use this orientation. The scanner is set on the tripod at the correct height. The patient is sitting at the correct distance from the scanner. And then we simply ask the patient to turn their head left to right, back to center, and then tip up again. And the benefit of that approach is the fact that it's easier to maintain the distance between the scanner and the patient. The downside, I guess, is then patient cooperation, and it's important that we maybe do a little dry run first, ask the patient to carry out those movements before we actually do the scanning, so that they understand what's required of them. So it's by far the preferred technique. I suppose from a space point of view, it can be a little bit challenging depending on how much space you have in the surgery, that the scanner needs to be set up on a tripod and so on. So that's strategy number one. Strategy number two is that we opt for the handheld mode. So in this situation, the scanner is held in a handheld manner. And Tom, if you could just turn around and face me, please. And in this situation, then we're trying to maintain a distance between the scanner and the patient. The patient stays stationary. The patient picks a point in space, stares at that point, and then we scan. And we move the scanner around the patient's face. So what's important in that situation is that the distance from the scanner to the patient is maintained and consistent. Also, the arc through which the scanner moves needs to be maintained and consistent as well. And that can be a little bit challenging because at the same time we need to keep an eye on the screen. So we're maintaining distance, maintaining path of movement, and keeping an eye on screen to make sure that all the data is being captured as we can. This type of situation can be a little bit more flexible. We're not asking the patient to do as much because they can be just sitting in the chair and we do the movement around it. And the key thing is, once the screen from the laptop or computer that you're using is in a convenient position so you can see it whilst scanning, well then that's going to work nice and easily as well. So for this demonstration, we're going to walk through the process whereby the patient is going to do the movement. So we'll start off, we'll get the scanner into a rough position. And so the idea here is then the scanner is looking straight at the patient. So Tom, what I'm going to ask you to do when we start scanning is, I just want you to imagine that you've got a finger in space and you're going to turn your head from one side to the other side following the finger. So the idea is that the pupils don't move. Pupils remain in a consistent position. So maybe you can try that. So if you could just follow my finger around, turning your head, turn your head, turn your head, back to center, and then repeat that on the other side, back to center, and then tip your head back, and back to center, and that's it done. So it's good to do a little dry run like that with the patient so that they understand what's required of them. So I might actually just move forward just a tiny little bit, bring the chair forward a little bit. So obviously a chair on wheels is very convenient, or stool indeed for that matter. So we'll create a new order. We've already got Tom in here as a patient. And we'll just select that it's an orthodontic assessment. So working with the software, we'll work through other workflows shortly, but we're just going to do a standard face scan at this point. So we just move on to the scan page. The software is giving us instruction. The software is asking us to frame within the outline that's presented in the software, and also on the right hand side of that you'll see that we've got a scale here indicating the distance between the patient and the scanner. So we can see here that we're too far away, and obviously from slightly positioned to the side as well rather than central. So either we can ask the patient to move, or indeed we can move the scanner, and of course we can adjust the height of the scanner as well. The one thing before we do any scanning is to bear in mind that we need to tell the software which technique we're using. Are we going to use the tripod, i.e. the fixed mode technique, or the handheld mode technique? So you can see we have a preset there as the fixed mode technique. So everything is centrally positioned. We're going to bring maybe bring Tom a little bit forward, maybe bring the tripod a little bit closer to him to reduce that distance, to get it within the acceptable level. When it is ready to go, the software will start capturing. So it's good to have the patient primed and ready to go. So as soon as the software then counts down the 3, 2, 1, then I'll ask you just to turn your head to the left, turn your head to the right, and then tip back. And another important point is make sure the patient turns their head all the way around. We want to get a good clear shot of the ears on both sides, because when the scan is being used in the lab software, if perhaps we're using it to align with a virtual articulator, that information is really, really important. So one final thing as well, we have a brightness setting. So we have an auto brightness. The software will automatically adjust to the brightness within the room, and it's good to do that, but we can override that if we wish. If we got some ambient light shining from one side or another, we can select what we prefer. But I think generally speaking, the auto selection is the better approach there. Brilliant. So let's bring the scanner closer. You can see on the right hand side then the scale is telling us we're good. So turn your head to the left, please, and turn your head to the right, back to center, back to right, back to center, and now tip your head back and back to center. Excellent. And at this point then, we just click on the finish icon on screen and the software has recorded everything. So that's a standard scanning strategy. It's important, again, just the movement and coordination of the patient. What I'm going to do is, it's going to turn out that it's a great scan. We are going to redo it because we're now going to work through a full scanning workflow. And so the full scanning workflow is that the patient is going to be smiling first, we'll do a scan. Then the patient's going to be at rest, we do a scan. Then we're going to pop in a cheek retractor and we're going to do a scan. We can align all of those scans and then we'll have this hybrid scan of all 3 data sets. Day-to-day use of the scanner, it's your call. It's how you wish to use it. You don't have to follow that procedure and that sequence of scans. You can, if you just want a smiling face, fine, that's perfectly fine. You can just do that. If you just want retracted, if you just want repose, you can do that as well. So you can see we've got the scan complete and everything is wonderful. And we got from ear to ear, and then we've got under the chin as well. So I'm really happy with that scan quality. Thank you, Tom. We are going to reset that. Going to clear the data and scan again, and we're going to go again. This time, big cheesy smile, please. And now turn your head towards me. Back to center. To the right. And back to center. And tip your head back. And we're done. Excellent. And what's noticeable as well within that scanning process, maybe Tom blinked a little bit and his eyes did wander a little bit. The software will capture the pupil position based on that initial scanning stage. And if the eyes wander a bit during the scanning, it's not the end of the world. In the processing stage here now, the software has captured all of that data. It's turning it into a nice finalized image. Excellent. We're now going to move on to the next stage, which is we're going to repeat the same scanning process, but this time we're going to do it with a closed mouth.
Please aim your face at the
So exactly the same process.
2,
We're in the same position. And then we can turn to the left, please. Turn to the right. And back to center. And tip your head back. And back to center, please. And we're finished. Now, what was really interesting about that situation, Tom's sitting on a chair that's on wheels and that can rotate. And instead of Tom just turning his head, there was a point there where he turned his whole body. And his head actually moved out of frame slightly. It moved off center, shall we say. The software is still captured, everything's good, but it is something to bear in mind. So ask the patient to sit stationary and just turn their head as much as they can. Keep their body as stationary as possible. Okay, excellent. And the next step then, if at any point as well we wanted to remove any aspects of the data, we can use the trim tool. You can just highlight that area and delete it and accept. And the next step now, because the software is expecting it's expecting 2 standard scans, smiling and repose, We don't have to do both. We can just do smiling if we wish. But it has asked us to do two standard scans. We're now going to add in a third scan ourselves. So we click on Add Steps. We do face data with the mouth retracted.
Please aim your 3,
and
2, 1.
We are going to, Tom, if you can put the retractor in first, please. I'm actually going to pause that. And we'll, I guess the scanner is the software is a little bit ahead of us, so we should have been prepared for that, have the retractor in place. And then it's important as well, if you can keep your mouth closed, your teeth closed as you normally would keep them closed. So that's perfect. So face data with retraction, we're going to reset that. And it's asking us to want to rescan all data. It's only that one stage of scanning. And on you go, turn towards me, please. Perfect, back to center. All the way to the right. Back to center. Tip your head back. And we're done. Excellent. Okay, and you can take the retractor out. There we go. Excellent. Again, we might like to just do a small bit of editing. Trim that out. And done. Okay, so we've got 3 sets of data. We've got Tom smiling, we've got Tom in repose, and we've got a retracted scan of Tom. And what's really important now is that we overlay the data. It's really important within the Shining workflow that we do that. However, if you're working with a third-party lab and they're using some software like Exocad and they're saying, don't worry about the alignment, we can do that within the lab software, well, that's fine. But it's really important you get that communication and understanding going between yourselves and the lab. But within the software, there is the functionality for doing alignment. So I'm going to click on Data Alignment. And what the software is now showing us, we've got 3 sets of data. We need to align them all. So we've got smiling and retracted. So we have the option of doing an auto align. If I click on the auto align option, we'll see the software bring in the 2 sets of data. And what's really nice then, so now we've got 2 sets of data sitting on top of each other, and we've got the option that's called heat map. And if we click on that, what we'll see then is that across the forehead, we're getting across the whole scan, we're getting a color-coded map that's showing us the deviation from one scan to the next. Between one scan and the other, shall I say. And we're seeing mostly around the forehead, which is the stable area, that the data is showing up as being green. So we're seeing minimal deviation there. That's exactly what we'd expect. We're seeing lots around the cheeks because we're going from smiling to retracted. So we're seeing lots of deviation there. So this is a really encouraging sign for us that everything is aligned exactly as it should. So then we can do between 1 and 2. Step 1 is the retracted and smiling. Step 2 is repose and smiling. So we click on step 2 and we can do an auto alignment here. And again, we'll do a heat map and we can see on Tom's forehead, everything is showing up as green, showing that there's absolutely minimal deviation. If we were unhappy with those, we can reset the alignment, and instead of selecting auto align, we can select manual align. And in manual align, then we're selecting some landmarks. So we'll pick the corner of his eyes. And we might pick a point on his hairline. Too young to have wrinkles, but if we did, we could select that. And then we click on finish. And the software is using those 3 points of alignment as a basis, and then it's doing a best fit alignment. So we're pretty much getting the same result. But there might be from time to time the odd situation where the auto alignment isn't working for us and we need to do a manual alignment. But you can see in both situations, automatic or alignment or manual alignment, we're getting exactly the same result. And at this point then, we can go to pre-design. And what we see on the left hand side is we have an array of the 3 different scans, and we can turn each one on and off using these sliders or the the visualization option. Turn them on and turn them off. So we'll turn on and we can increase the level of opacity or transparency of each one as well. So we've got smiling. Let's turn them all on, in fact. So smiling on its own, repose on its own, or retracted on its own. So this gives us a really good indication that everything is lined up exactly as it should. If we had an intraoral scan, either from a Shining intraoral scanner or from a third-party intraoral scanner, we can introduce those as well and get a full hybrid scan. And that's for another video. So we'll go to send, and at this point then we have the option of where do we want to send the scan to. Do we send it to our preferred lab partner, or in this case I'm just going to select my cloud, click on send, and the software will then process the data and send it up to the cloud. The alternative option that was there was export, and in that case we can export each of the individual scans, which could then be used in a third-party software or transferred to the lab or third party via email or WeTransfer, something like that. So I hope this video has been useful. I hope that it has covered every aspect. I believe it has covered every aspect of carrying out a basic scan. I hope you found it useful, and of course, as always, if you have any questions, please reach out to our support team at support@esmdigitalsolutions.com. Thanks and goodbye.